Hare Krishna. So I'm very grateful to the team of IYS organizers for inviting me this year for the IYS Yatra. And as all of us have experienced 2 years of intense suffering in the lockdown, not having the association we are used to in the past. So I think this year's IYS Yatra is even more delightful because it is like liberation. So, how many of you are coming to Vrindavan for the first time? First time. And what happened to those who have come in the past? No. Wow, I didn't realize that. So welcome to all the first timers to Sri Vrindavan Dham. So when I first came to Vrindavan in 1994 Yatra with Radhanath Maharaj, mask ko kam karo. So I had seen pictures in Krishna book and I had imagined Vrindavan to be like that. You have seen Krishna book pictures. So then when I came physically to Vrindavan and saw, so I first thought this is not Vrindavan. How can this be Vrindavan? It doesn't look at all the way I've seen in Krishna book. So it was a big shock for me initially. I mean, 1994 Vrindavan was much more greener than what you see today. But still even that was like difficult to understand. And then I asked, Sanat Kumar Prabhu was there with me and a few other devotees. After a couple of days I couldn't keep myself from asking that. अरे यार ये तो वृंदावन जैसा ही नहीं दिखता. So then he replied, वृंदावन को देखो मत, चुपचाप सेवा करो. And that became my mantra ever after, that we don't come and try to see the dham with our material vision. We try to come and serve the dham. So the purpose of coming to the holy dham is to actually serve Krishna, who has manifested in the form of his holy dham. So in the Ajamil pastime, it is described, Esha prakriti sangena purushasya viparyaya asit sa eva na chirat isha sangat vilayate. That the conditioned soul has turned his face away from Krishna and is engaged in intense sense gratification. And he is not inclined to serve Krishna. Purushasya viparyaya, his face is away from Krishna. Asit sa eva na chirat isha sangat vilayate. To reclaim them, Krishna comes in 5 forms. In the form of holy name, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the form of deities, in the form of the Vaishnavas, and in the form of holy dham. Right? So therefore, in the COVID period, we could still have experienced Bhagavatam and holy name and have darshan of deities and all. But experience of dham is only possible by coming here. So that is the 5th, the holy dham, which is non-different from Krishna. And anyway, giving lectures on Zoom is totally different from giving lectures live. Because last 6 months I almost stopped giving lectures on Zoom in devotee circle. Only some conference or this or that. Everybody keeps their camera off You don't know whether the guy is hearing or sleeping. And then it is like, Brahma Jyoti. And you're just speaking to some Brahman effulgence. So, we are very fortunate that this very same place few years ago, the last yatra we had with Radhanath Maharaj, we had almost 8,000 people in the Pandal. 5,500 were registered, but in the Pandal at least, 7,000 to 8,000 people were sitting. And sometimes I have heard devotees complain, "Arey, bahut bheed hai. It's too crowded." But we took it for granted. And then for 2 years, Krishna put everybody in so much isolation that everyone is hankering for association. So the point is, you can never take anything for granted. Even the most simplest experience of coming together in association and hearing and chanting, this experience of all of us are sitting here, this can be taken away any moment. And therefore, we need to always remain grateful. So His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj always begins his Dham Parikrama lectures by saying that we enter the Holy Dham in the mood of servitude and gratitude. Tam sukharadhyam rijubhir ananya sharanaindrabhir krutagya kono seveta duraradhyam asadubhi. He explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto that devotional service is very easy to perform for someone who has the mood of gratitude. Kritagya. Kritagya means to remember what someone has done for me. And therefore, as Kali Yuga progresses, there is loss of memory. And one of the greatest casualties of loss of memory is that along with loss of memory of data and information, the greater effect is loss of memory of who has done good for me, who has supported me, who has helped me in the past. And we forget that. So then that results in what is known as ingratitude, kritagya. So therefore, kritagya or being grateful is a very, very important quality to appreciate the Holy Dham. Prabhupada, when he established Krishna consciousness in America in 1966, he did not have too many people, but the few people who were supporting him were extremely loyal. So Hamsadutta Prabhu comes and, he's a young hippie, and then Prabhupada says we should have a world traveling Sankirtan party. And he's excited. And he goes and gets a very old, dilapidated bus from some other hippie. And then he comes and brings it in front of Srila Prabhupada. And this bus is so old and so dilapidated, doesn't have any paint, doesn't have windows. All the window panes are broken. Even the front glass in front of the driver is broken. And there is only one seat for the driver. But what does he have? Enthusiasm to serve and please. And he brings Prabhupada, and Prabhupada enters the bus and he looks at the whole bus and he says, "Where will I sit? There is no seat for me." So they go and get a chair. And Prabhupada says, when the bus moves, the chair will move. So there is Brahmanand Prabhu, who is very heavy. He comes and holds the chair. And he says, "Now it will not move, Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada sits, Hamsadutta sits in the, Hamsadutta Prabhu sits in the driver's seat, switches on the ignition. As soon as he switches on the ignition, there is smoke which comes out of the dashboard. And Prabhupada says, "Oh, looks like an Indian bus." And Hamsadutta Prabhu has never been to India. He thinks it's a great compliment. Prabhupada is so pleased. And then, they take a small tour and then Prabhupada says, maybe we should have some better facility than this. This won't last long. But then in 3 years' time, when Prabhupada establishes the BBT, he calls Hamsadutta and says, I'll make you the BBT trustee. So he says, but I am not educated. I'm a college dropout. There are other MBAs. Maybe they should be the trustees. But Prabhupada said the qualification for, leadership in Krishna consciousness is not these degrees. It is your enthusiasm to serve the will of Guru and Vaishnavas. And because you are enthusiastic to serve and wanting to please me, trying your best as per your capacity. So therefore, I think you should take responsibility. So the reward in Krishna consciousness, just like in the outside world, when you do well in your career, you get a promotion. Right? When you get a promotion, what do you get? You get a higher title, you get more responsibility, and you get more salary. So in Krishna consciousness, when you are promoted, you get more service, and more service. So therefore, Vrindavan Dham is the place where we come to beg and pray and extract that power to serve. When you go to an ATM machine, what comes out of it? Sugarcane juice? What comes out of the ATM machine? Cash. Right? You need to know the password, and then out comes the cash. So therefore, Vrindavan Dham is also like an ATM machine. And what comes out is the power to serve. From whom? The Brajavasis. Because only those who have can give. So therefore, right now, I have great power to enjoy senses. We don't need, anybody's support to do sense gratification. We are quite competent on our own. And there are enough ideas on the internet. But we need a lot of help when we need to replace that sense gratification tendency with the ability to serve. So therefore, that is a power which is given. That is a power which needs to be received. And therefore, every particle of this place, every atomic fraction of this place is exploding with unlimited power of service. And therefore, we have come here to plug ourselves into that and get some fraction of it. So therefore, a trip to Vrindavan Dham will rejuvenate your consciousness, erase the tendencies for sense gratification, and create new sanskars for doing seva for Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. And that is obtained by begging. And it cannot be obtained by artificially and forcibly trying to get it. Right? But it has to be in the mood of genuine begging, not artificial begging. Like when I used to go for programs, in the 90s, so to take the local train from Grant Road, I would take a taxi because Prasad would be there. So when the taxi would stop at Nana Chowk, there would be a beggar who would come and say, "Arey bakshish do, Malad tak jana hai. Jaane ke liye ticket nahi hai." But the problem was, I would meet him every week. for years together. He would not change his dialogue also. So one day I asked him, अरे दुनिया चांद तक जाके आ गई, तो अभी तक मलाड नहीं पहुंचा गया. So these are professional beggars. It is not the genuine mood. And sometimes when I would come back from college program, at night, prasadam would be over, so they would already take the prasadam for Food for Life in Babulnath temple. So I would take the plate and go sometime. And there I would see that some of the beggars whom they would be trying to serve prasad, they would first ask, "Kya layo?" Khichdi. So that means they are full already. So when Maharaj brings yatra to Vrindavan, he always says, we have to approach Vrindavan Dham in the mood of service, servitude and gratitude, and the way to approach is in the mood of a beggar. So we have to pray and beg for the divine energy to permeate within our consciousness. So these are the initial thoughts on how to approach Shri Vrindavan Dham, and I'll speak briefly on how Lord Sri Krishna, when he appeared here 5,000 years ago, he killed various demons as part of his pastimes. Premara niriyas korite aswadana ragamarga loke bhakti korite pracharan. So Krishna appeared to taste love and to teach love. But Krishna also performed pastimes of killing demons. So the pastime of killing demons in Vrindavan is something which is both historical and at the same time it has deep significance with respect to our process of transformation of our heart and consciousness. So Krishna appears in the jailhouse of Kamsa as the eighth son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Why does Krishna appear in a jailhouse? Why does Krishna appear in such tumultuous circumstances? Even the poorest person is able to afford to have children in a hut which is free. But why does Krishna do this? Because the main purpose of Krishna's pastimes is to attract our hearts and consciousness and our minds towards him. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham deham ashrita bhajate tadrishi krida yashrutva tatparo bhavet. By hearing Krishna's pastimes, one becomes attracted towards those pastimes and develops a desire to establish a relationship with Krishna. That's the reason why these pastimes are enacted by Krishna. And so when Krishna appears, he appears after a lot of drama has happened and Vasudeva and Devaki have been tortured by Kamsa. So it has been observed that the conditioned soul in this material world gets more attracted and more absorbed when there is a situation of conflict than when there is peace and harmony. So if Vasudeva and Devaki had married and after marriage Kamsa had taken them in his carriage, in his chariot peacefully, dropped Devaki and Vasudeva at a palace, given them a nice farewell, and then Vasudeva Devaki's life continued like that, and they got one son after another, and everything was peaceful. It would have been fine for Vasudeva and Devaki, but it would not have been fine for you and me, because we would not get attracted to something which is not dramatic enough. What makes the headlines in newspapers? What makes headlines in the newspapers? Putinat sube uthe chai piye. That is not, attractive. वॉर घोषित किया तो अरे सब जाग गए, क्या हो गया? So when there is some conflict, there is action, there is, some kind of a war situation, it attracts attention. So therefore Krishna orchestrates the pastimes in a very dramatic way by appearing after 6 of his brothers have been killed. So it brings out emotion within, right? Otherwise, for Krishna to orchestrate any destruction, he could also create a heart attack for Kamsa. Kamsa wakes up in the morning, suddenly gets a heart attack, collapses, and the Mathura Times reports Kamsa is dead. So it's not, worth organizing katha for. So both the katha shrota and katha vakta both need drama. So therefore Krishna makes sure there is enough drama in his pastimes. And then the 7th son is even more dramatic because he is Balram, who takes birth in the womb of Devaki and then is transferred to the womb of Rohini and then becomes Rohini Nandan. So Parikshit Maharaj in the 10th canto asks, we have heard of one mother having 2 sons. I have never heard of one son having 2 mothers. So that's also very intriguing. And then finally Krishna appears. So when Krishna is in the womb of Devaki, Devaki becomes extremely effulgent. Sa Devaki sarva jagan nivasa nivasa bhutam nitaram nareje bhojendra gehe agni shikhe varuddha saraswati jnana khole yathasati. So Devaki has become so effulgent, there is such a transformation because of the presence of Krishna within. So as soon as Krishna enters into our heart, enters into our consciousness, transformation is guaranteed. There is 100% transformation which is going to happen. That's the power of connecting with Krishna. As soon as Krishna touches anyone's life, their hearts start transforming. So that's why as soon as the jail guards saw Devaki, they were struck with wonder to see her effulgence. And then when Kamsa came with a sword to kill Devaki, and when he saw Devaki's effulgence, Kamsa took a step back and thought, my threat is from that 8th son, not from Devaki. Let me postpone her killing. So as soon as Kamsa decides that I will postpone my killing and I will not kill Devaki, Shukadeva Goswami notices this fact. And then he says that Sannivritta Ahim Prabhu, he acknowledges and praises Kamsa by saying that Kamsa postponed the killing of Devaki and he calls him Prabhu. He calls him Prabhu, gives him respect. Why? He gives him respect because Kamsa has changed and transformed his plan. His consciousness has transformed. He has changed for the good. There is some improvement. Little bit of improvement. So therefore when people say, "Arey, why you guys are running this ISKCON society, kuch practical kijiye aap log." So I say, we are doing the most practical thing. "Arey, but what is religion and everything? Religion is not practical." I said, we are not into religion. Who said we are into religion? We are into healthcare. And people get bewildered. Healthcare? What healthcare? Yes, in healthcare, they deal with pain of the body transforming the health. We are dealing with transforming the hearts, transforming the consciousness. Because one Duryodhan's consciousness was not transformed, it was filled with ego. Duryodhan means one who was always fighting for the wrong cause. So nobody could convince Duryodhan that there could be people better than you. Because he was convinced, I am the best. I am the highest. Nobody can be higher than me. And he was so convinced that I am the best and I am the highest that he would not allow people even in summer season to hold an umbrella over him. Because he said, how can umbrella be above me? That was the level of his obsession with being the best. And because of that obsession, this same Duryodhan ultimately, in spite of all efforts, would not agree for a peace treaty. Krishna himself tried and Krishna failed. And finally, there was a battle which killed 640 million people. 64 crore soldiers were killed in 18 days' time. COVID तो बच्चा है उसके सामने. 64 crore people were killed in 18 days. This is recorded history. Yes or no? Which virus attacked? Which killed all this? The virus of ego. And therefore, ISKCON is trying to deal with this virus to transform the hearts and consciousness and purify from these conceptions. And therefore, Kamsa was totally obsessed with this fact that I have to be victorious. And so Krishna had to manifest in a way which would ultimately destroy Kamsa. And so he appeared within the jailhouse in a very dramatic manner. And when Krishna appeared, he appeared in a four-armed form. And after he appeared in his four-armed form, Krishna appeared with all of his hairs intact and in a beautiful effulgent form to demonstrate that his Sat-Chit Ananda in all circumstances. Right? And that is Krishna's manifestation within this material world. He appears to protect his devotees and to kill the demons. That's his ultimate goal, to serve the devotees and to demonstrate how the Supreme Lord is someone who is beyond this material world, but he still appears in this world to allow each one of us an opportunity to develop a relationship with him. Right? I was doing a Janmashtami lecture at IIT, and after the lecture, one IIT student came up to me and started arguing with me that if Kamsa knew that the eighth son is going to be the killer, of him, he should have kept Devaki in one prison and Vasudeva in another prison. Not even a single son would have been born. So why he could not understand even such a simple thing, Kamsa ko itna bhi chamka nahi kiya. I said to him, क्या करे Kamsa, IIT नहीं गया था. But Krishna appears in a dramatic manner so that we get attracted to try to understand why he does this. Because the material world is a place which is jailhouse, which is misery at every step. So Krishna wants to highlight that as soon as we look at Krishna Janmashtami, we have to focus on Vasudeva and Devaki and their character. So Krishna is saying, just look at the character and the life of my mother and father. Did they have peace? Did they have a quiet life? they had, as soon as they were married, from the day of their marriage, Vasudeva and Devaki were in lockdown. And not just ordinary lockdown. Kamsa was there to destroy each of their sons in front of their eyes. Kamsa would take the newborn sons and throw right in front of Devaki and Vasudeva's eyes on a piece of rock. And blood would splash right in front of their eyes. So this is Krishna's own parents. So Krishna is doing this to prove to all of us that the nature of this material world is that there will be conflict, anxiety all around every moment. But in the midst of prosperity or adversity, your mind should be focused only on asking two questions: how to serve Krishna and how to please Krishna. Because so many questions could have come in Vasudeva and Devaki's mind when this was going on. They would have given up hope. But the greatest asset which they carried, which they did not give up, was hope. So when Krishna appears, along with his appearance, he is highlighting on the character qualities of those whom he loves, those with whom he relates with, and is inspiring us, saying that if you want to make your life like this, then make sure that your heart is always full of hope. Education system doesn't mean simply training young, intelligent people to gain material wealth as an asset. The problem with the education system is everybody is being trained simply to gain wealth, reputation, position and power as assets. Whereas Krishna, through his descent and his pastimes, is revealing another very important element of education. Each and every member in human society needs to be educated in how to gain and retain the asset of hope. And that's what Shukadeva Goswami is glorifying Vasudeva as. Tatascha shauri bhagavat prachodita sutam samadaya cha sutika grihat. So Shukadeva Goswami calls Vasudeva as Shauri, one who is brave. Why is called brave? He does not give up hope. Brave does not mean one who does not lose wealth or battle or position, but one who refuses to lose hope. And therefore, your school and college education is designed to help you acquire the asset of wealth. But the association of devotees and the temples which have been created and the scriptures which you hear and the spiritual processes you follow and the darshan of the deities in the temple and visits to the holy places like this is designed to help you acquire the asset of hope. And that's the main message behind Krishna's appearance. I appear in the lives of people like Vasudeva and Devaki who refuse to give up hope. The whole world may give up upon them, but they will never give up. And they continue to fight in all circumstances. I was in an airport and then, somebody suddenly shouted from behind, "Arey Swamiji, Swamiji, rukiye, rukiye." So I stopped and he came and said, "Bhagavad Gita hai kya?" I said, "Yahan par nahi hai, mandir mein." So he said, "Nahi, mujhe chahiye tha." So I said, क्या करते हो आप? What do you do? So he said, CA. I said, oh, chartered accountants? He said, nahi, complete आराम. 70 years का हो गया हूँ, अभी सोच रहा हूँ गीता खोलता हूँ. यही उम्र है ना गीता खोलने की. So many people have this feeling that the Gita should be reserved for that age when you can't see anything anymore. I was in a local train and then I tried to give a Gita to somebody. The guy said, no, my father has a Gita, my grandfather has one more Gita. Nahi chahiye mujhe. Young fellow. So I gave him temple card, some prasadam. You know, he looked very morose, so I smiled at him. I said, please, tension hai to aa jana kabhi mandir. So then I went to another compartment. I was distributing in the another compartment and this guy followed me. And I said, अरे क्या हो गया? बोले गीता चाहिए. I said, but you already have, no? One way from father, one from grandfather. No, I want from you. I said, अरे why? He said, last 6 months, my boss has been screaming at me, my wife has been screaming at me, my father has been screaming at me. Everybody is angry with me. You are the first person in last 6 months who has smiled at me. Therefore, I want Gita from you. I was thinking, oh, if I knew, I would have laughed and given whole Bhagavatam. So in Kali Yuga, the normal tendency is for people to be in anxiety. So Bhagavatam says, what is the prime, emotion in animals? Fear. Animals are always in fear. If you see some bird eating grains, the bird will pick up 2-3 grains and then look left and right to see someone is coming or not. You have noticed? Right? Why? When we are eating, we don't have that kind of anxiety. We may have anxiety कि भाई गुलाब जामुन खत्म हो जाएगा या कुछ second serving नहीं मिलेगा. But ऐसा नहीं कि बगल वाला मारेगा क्या भी. So it's the prime emotion, fear. Prime emotion amongst demigods is they're always in mood for enjoyment, bhog. As soon as the demigods get up, party begins. That is demigod life. स्वर्ग लोक में जैसे अलार्म बजा सुबह 7 बजे जैसी छोड़ा इंद्र आके बैठ गए, अप्सराएं डांस करना स्टार्ट. मतलब हम लोग भी नहीं हैंडल कर सकते हो क्योंकि उसके लिए वैसा बॉडी चाहिए. कलयुग का आदमी फ्रस्ट्रेट हो जाएगा, बोले यार अभी सुबह सुबह को स्टार्ट कर दिया, रुक जाए तो थोड़ा बाद में करते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि हमको कमाना है, वहाँ कुछ कमाना नहीं है. ऑलरेडी दे आर वेल्दी, सो दे आर भोग, ऑलवेज इन भोग. एंड देयरफॉर Bhagavatam, the demigod are praying that this place is nityotsavam, indriya utsavat, atishaya indriya utsavat. They say this place is excessive, atishaya, indriya utsav, festival of sense gratification. So we want to go to Bharatvarsh. Kalpayashat sthana jayat punarbhavat kshanayushat bharat bhujayovaram. Therefore we want to come to Bharatvarsh because here everything is medium. So therefore demigod life is too much bhog, pashu jivan or animal life is too much fear. What is the prime emotion of human life? Lamentation. That is our constant companion. Lamentation, शोक. अरे यार ये नहीं मिला, कमा नहीं पाया, कमा दिया, गर्लफ्रेंड नहीं मिली, मिली थी चली गई या फिर क्यों मिली. Different varieties depending on time, place, circumstance. And one who is not having job is lamenting, नौकरी नहीं मिल रही, नौकरी नहीं मिल रही, डिग्री मिल के 6 महीना हो गया. And then he meets somebody who is already doing job since 1 year. And he's lamenting, अरे यार job, boss जालिम है, job बड़ा ये है वो है. So everybody you will see is lamenting. So that is a constant background music, like you are hearing the background music here. So lamentation is what is pradhan. Therefore, Krishna appears to help us know that the greatest asset which you can gain in human form is if you have Krishna in your life. There is nothing more to hanker, there is nothing to lament. And therefore, our Parikshit Maharaj, when he is hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, he is explaining to Shukadeva Goswami that yena yena avatarena bhagavan haririshvara karoti karna ramyani manogyani chana prabho. This hearing of Krishna's pastimes is karna ramyani, very pleasing to the ears, manogyani, and the meanings are extremely heart-touching to our mind and intelligence. Right? And he explains that by doing this hearing on a regular basis, yat shrinvato paiti oratir vitrishna sattvam cha shuddhyati achirena pumsa sattvam harau tat purushe cha sakhyam sa eva haram vadamanyase chet. And Parikshit Maharaj says, by hearing this Krishna Katha on a regular basis, one will gain 5 things. What is that? Apaiti aratir. First of all, the distaste for hearing goes away. For anything you need to develop taste. If you are not used to something, you will not have taste. So you need to develop taste for something by regularly having it. When you have it on a regular basis, you will develop taste. So therefore that is known as oratir. So initially hearing Krishna Katha does not provide taste. Chanting holy names does not provide taste. Chanting appears very difficult also after a few days. And then sometimes you realize that the best sleep comes during that. And it somehow miraculously happens. I was traveling in a train, early in the morning I got up, I was chanting. And then right in front of me someone was sleeping. I was chanting very, very mildly. But looks like it was affecting him. So he started turning around, karvat badalne laga. Then after some time, he tried to put his kambal over his head. He was trying to think that, that will prevent the holy name from entering. I was thinking holy name pierces universe also. So suddenly after some time, he got up, sat down and looked at me and said, "अरे सुबह सुबह अपने कृष्णा को तो सोने दे यार." So getting up in the morning and chanting, it's not easy, it's difficult. But why are we doing this? So that we can overcome the influence of the modes of Rajogun and Tamogun and come to Sattvagun. If you have to take a flight, where do you take the flight from? From your home? Do you phone up Indigo Airlines? आ जाना यार यहाँ पे. हाँ, भटवाड़ी में आ जाना, 8वीं गली में, बिल्डिंग 2A, टेरेस पे उतर जाना. टेरेस से पकड़ लूँगा. Where do you have to go? Airport. And what is there in the airport? The plane, the flight. घास पर घूमता है क्या? Where does the flight take off on? Runway. Runway has a defined path. Runway is limited or unlimited? Limited. It restricts the movement of the flight. Is restriction good or bad? Restriction is good or bad? जोर से बोलो. दम नहीं निकल रही थी क्या? Restriction is, because only when the flight is restricted, what the flight will gain? Speed. When the flight gains speed, then what it will gain? Altitude, height. And then when it gains both speed and altitude, what it will gain? Distance. So therefore, you can't say, मुझे न्यूयॉर्क जाना है, साइकिल में जाऊंगा. You can't. You have to take a flight only. So therefore, it is not that ISKCON is an organization which is very, very excited about restrictions. मजा आता है सबको दबाने. ये मत खाओ, वो मत खाओ. ये मत पियो, वो मत पियो. अभी सोए नहीं, उठो. तो ऐसा नहीं, हम लोग को सबको ऐसा जगाने में और रुलाने में मजा आता है. फर्स्ट टू डिफाइन कहाँ जाना है कि नहीं? अब यहाँ से मथुरा जाना है, साइकिल में जाओ. अब बोलो यहाँ से न्यूयॉर्क जाना है, तो साइकिल में कैसे जाएंगे? So therefore, what is the goal we have defined, where we have to go after death? Golok Vrindavan. So if we have to go there, then there is a certain way in which the flight goes. For that there has to be takeoff. For the takeoff there has to be runway. Runway has to be restricted and there has to be an airport. So therefore airport is considered to be mode of goodness. Without coming to airport you cannot catch the flight. So therefore mode of goodness is the minimum. And therefore the 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles and everything is in place. Because when there are regulative principles, so Prabhupada calls it regulative principles of freedom. है कि नहीं? पतंग उड़ाया, कितने लोगों ने पतंग उड़ाया? हाँ, so जो है, that kite is connected to a thread. Now my question is, अगर मैं वो रस्सी को तोड़ दूं, काट दूं, तो पतंग और ऊंचा उड़ेगा कि नहीं? अरे तुम खींच रहा है यार, उसको छोड़ दो, जाने दो, उड़ने दो. So if you cut that rope, the kite will go up for some time and then it will fall. So that rope which you have is a restriction, but that rope is helping the flight go higher. The more you restrict yourself and discipline yourself, the faster and higher you will go. The faster and higher you will go. How many of you want that? So are you ready for restrictions? Who will impose those restrictions? Yourself. So therefore, discipline is the fusion of intention with action. Discipline is the fusion of intention with action. So that's something which is, the crux of what Krishna is trying to share through his teachings and what Srila Prabhupada has come to give. Right? When the devotees told Prabhupada there is a nightclub which opens at 9 p.m., goes on till 5 a.m., there is great opportunity for book distribution. Please give us blessings, we can go and distribute books. Prabhupada said, go and come back also. It should not be one-way ticket. Right? So therefore, in material education, for becoming brilliant student and for cracking the gold medal, you don't need any character transformation. You can be a chain smoker, be a drunkard, do whatever and then still get your marks or do your job or this or that. But here, your goal is different. Your goal is you are trying to enter into the highest plane of eternal service. So you are trying to prepare your consciousness to be purified of the tiniest iota of selfishness. You're trying to create that plane which is pure and selfless. When I was studying in IIT, we had a professor, very celebrated, very intellectual. When he would be solving sums on the board, he would get stuck sometimes, and then when he would get stuck, he would take out his cigarette. And then he would place the cigarette on his mouth and he'll search for the, matchstick or lighter. Sometimes he would not get it. And the student sitting in the front bench would allow him and give him that. Guru Seva. And then, he then starts puffing, and then, he comes with a solution, and everybody thinks, oh wow. When you get stuck in life, live life king size and die dog size. So therefore, the propaganda is extremely heavy, and to follow these restrictions are going to be very challenging, but we are determined to do it. And along with determination, we need the prayer and the grace. And that's why we are here, to pray. So in your 3, 4, 5 days of your yatra, you have to be in a prayerful mood, because this is like a hospital. You don't expect perfectly healthy people to be in hospital. So hospital means there will be patients with difficulties and challenges. But that transformation happens. So therefore, apaiti aratir means distaste. By hearing Krishna Katha, distaste goes away. And you develop taste for the process of hearing and chanting. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, when he was giving a lecture in Fogla Ashram, during your tour, if you get a chance, have a look at Fogla Ashram. That's a historical place where hundreds and thousands of devotees have assembled for lectures in the past. And this was, I think, 2001 or 2002, and the lecture was going on. It was that afternoon we were supposed to go to 7 temples, darshan. And Maharaj began lecture at 9 o'clock. And then around 12 o'clock, 12:30, we started setting up the prasadam in the backside counter. And people who were sitting at the back heard the commotion and looked behind, and they could smell also the prasadam. And there were 2,500 people. So these people at the back thought that it's good chance for us to stand in line first. But then it will be too obvious also that, arey, kitne besharam hai, prasad ke liye khade. So they kind of stood up. They were very near where the counter was. They were standing, but they were not standing in a way that it appeared it's a line. So they tried to hide it as much as possible, but they all had the same agenda, to be the first to start the prasadam. So around 12:30, Maharaj paused the lecture, and then he said, "Shall I continue?" So when he says that in his lecture, the devotees respond by saying, Hari. Right? It works with Maharaj, it doesn't work with everybody. One of our brahmacharis took a yatra and he did the same thing. He said, "Shall I continue?" They said, "No." Serve breakfast. So when he said that, I was looking at these 100, 150 people who are standing at the back. Very obvious why they are standing. But they also raised their hands and said, "Hari Bol." Then again at 2:30 he asked. And again at 3:30 he asked. Lecture finally ended at 4 o'clock. It was the longest lecture he gave on all the Goswamis' pastimes and everything. So, to hear for extended periods of time requires taste. When you are eager in a relationship of love with Krishna. Vitrishna means desires. Material desires go away by hearing Krishna Katha, because you hear about the aspirations of those who are connected to Krishna. And when Nanda Maharaj and all the Brajavasis are attacked by various demons one after another, Shukadeva Goswami describes that they are totally unaffected because they are constantly absorbed in hearing about Krishna. So one who is free from material desires. By hearing Krishna Katha, one becomes purified of material desires. Third, Sattvam, Sattva gun increases. Fourth, Bhakti increases. Fifth, relationship develops amongst those who are sitting and hearing these pastimes. So therefore, Shukadeva Goswami says, Parikshit Maharaj tells Shukadeva Goswami, Tadeva haram vadamanya sechet. This garland of Krishna Katha I will wear around my neck. And then he says, Athonyadapi Krishnasya toka charitam adbhutam manusham lokamasadya tat jatim anurundhata. He says, I want to hear about Krishna's childhood pastimes. Toka charitam adbhutam. Because Krishna, as you know, has appeared in different incarnations. Matsya, Kurma, Vamana, Narsingha. But in all these pastimes, there is no Bal Leela. Right? I mean, Vaman Dev comes, form is small, then suddenly increases in that form. And Narsingha Dev, there is no question of any Bal Leela. The only Bal Leela was Hiranyakashipu ke Bal Nocho. He was in such a supremely angry mode, he had no time for anything else. He was focused only on killing. So when Krishna, and in Rama Leela also, you don't hear about Lord Rama's Bal Leela. So Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan from the time he appeared till the age of 11 is very special. And that 11 years of Krishna in Bhauma Vrindavan happens only once in a day of Brahma. So those 11 years are really solid, very rare. And to be born just 5,000 years after those 11 years, that's like a real jackpot. And just after Krishna appears personally, 4,500 years after that, Krishna appears again to give booster dose as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And to be born 500 years just after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared, that is super jackpot. So therefore Prabhupada says, Mahaprabhu he appeared recently. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared very recently. So, when Krishna appeared and he was taken, as soon as he appeared, Vasudeva was wondering what to do, and Krishna tells him that Ta Krishna Vahe Vasudeva Agate Swayam Vyavartanta Yatha Tamorave. Pick me up and take me to Gokul. So Vasudeva is, thinking, how can I do this? So typically when you fail in an exam, or fail in a subject, or fail in a activity, effort, what happens to your confidence? It goes up or it goes down? Do you gain confidence or you lose confidence? And when you fail, does the college give you gold medal and promote you? Does any campus interview company come and pick up those who are failed? They give employment to those who are topped, done well. So Vasudeva has failed from the time of his marriage. He has failed to protect his wife, he has failed to protect his first son, failed to protect the second son, failed to protect the third son, failed to protect fourth son, failed to protect fifth son, failed to protect sixth son. Vasudeva is a bona fide failure. And Krishna is telling him, I want you to perform the service of protecting me. Does it make sense? Is it logical? If you have a very crucial service, whom will you give it to? The one who is successful or one who has failed? But Krishna is giving it to Vasudeva. So Krishna is saying, your success and failure does not depend on you, it depends on me. So therefore, if today I decide to empower Vasudeva, then nothing can stop him. At that moment, Vasudeva's consciousness and faith in Krishna is tested. Because if he had faith in his own ego, he would have thought, I can't do it, ye mere se nahi hoga. So he would all be I. No, he was all set. He said, I'm all ready. Right? So that is the confidence Prabhupada carried in Krishna. Someone said to Prabhupada, they say that, they are organizing trips to the moon. And Prabhupada, they are also saying they are selling land on the moon. Prabhupada said, we will go and distribute books in the moon. We have no problem with that. Because the confidence was coming in Krishna. Right? So therefore, Guru Kripa Swami, when he came to India, Mumbai for the first time, he went out to make life member. 21 years old. Sannyas at 21, 22. And then he's sitting in front of a shopkeeper. 4 or 5 shopkeepers are sitting in Kalbadevi chit-chatting, and he's showing them the Bhagavad Gita and saying, become member. And they look at him and say, what is this Gita all about? And he say, how Krishna spoke to Arjuna, Arjuna the hero of Mahabharata. And they started laughing. Arey, you think Arjuna is the hero? Nonsense. Karna is the hero. And he had just joined 2-3 years ago. He had never heard of Karna. He didn't know Karna. No. Arjuna. So they said, Arey, you don't know anything. Karna. And he said, Arey, I have heard from Prabhupada. Only Arjuna. And they started pushing for Karna. He became angry. So Guru Kripa Swami became angry. And then he picked up his fist, clenched his fist, and brought it close to that person's nose, 6 inches away, and said, the hero is Arjuna. Accept it, else. The guy got shocked. He said, Hare, you are sadhu, you are behaving like this. What Swami Prabhupada has taught you, what the chanting of Hare Krishna has done to you, you are still becoming angry, there is no change. He said, 3 years ago, if we had the same conversation, already your nose would be bleeding. In 3 years, I got so much self-control, my fist is 6 inches away. It is the grace of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada actually transformed the hearts of devotees, gave them the confidence of depending on higher grace. So therefore here, Vasudevji picks up Krishna because Krishna has said. He doesn't think, Arey, kaise hoga, kya hoga, how can I do, I cannot do this, mere se nahi hoga. उठाओ, बाद में देखेंगे. कौन देखेगा? कृष्णा देखेंगे. So he just picked up and automatically the jail doors opened. The jail doors opened. All the shackles at the feet, they broke. All the guards, they were snoring and sleeping. And he went in front of the Yamuna parted way. All obstacles were removed because he was carrying Krishna. So therefore, people ask, why do you guys get up in the morning and start chanting? Uthte hi start, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. What is the need? आराम से सो, उठो, काम करो, और फिर रात को सोने के पहले नींद नहीं आई तो कर लेना माला. I was in a yatra and sharing room with somebody many years ago. It was 9:30 at 10 o'clock at night. I was about to sleep. The other guy was sitting on the bed with bead bag in his hand looking at the pillow. I said, क्या हो गया? गुस्से में लग रहा है. Because full day was blissful yatra. I don't know why he was angry. So he looked at me and said, 6 माला बचा है. तो I said, ठीक है, तो फिर इतने गुस्से की क्या बात है? सोच रहा हूं मेरे को इस्कॉन में कौन लेके आया था. So sometimes we begin the process and we feel the process is too difficult. How will I do it? The process is difficult, but the difficult process becomes easy by depending on Krishna, by praying to Krishna. Because that process is not as difficult as it was for Vasudeva to carry Krishna across. You will move the next step by the grace of Krishna. स्थिर होए घर जाओ नहाओ बातुल क्रमे क्रमे पाए लोक भव सिंधु कुल. Mahaprabhu tells Raghunath Das Goswami, while practicing the process of Krishna consciousness, follow just like swimming. Focus on the next stroke. Pull the water back. Hit your feet. That's it. You will move the next feet. Then focus on the next. So take it one day at a time. Focus on each day. Antare nishtha kar bahya loka vyavahar ochire koribe Krishna tomara uddhar. He tells Das Goswami, Antare nishtha kar, have deep faith within, be contemplative. So now all of you as youth have connected to Krishna consciousness. Your focus has to change. What should be your focus? Your focus has to be internal. So once you focus internally, contemplating how I can serve and please Krishna the next moment, automatically your vision, your activity, everything will change. Antare nishtha kar bahya loka vyavahar. So there is a certain process of swimming in Krishna consciousness. You follow the technique, you will float. You don't get the technique right, you will struggle. Just like a swimmer who doesn't know how to swim. So therefore, there is no way you can progress if you are externally constantly distracted. So here, Vasudevji is crossing because he's totally absorbed only on one thing. Krishna has told me to do this, I will do this. And then he replaces. And the next day after, Vasudeva returns back, the next day when Nanda Maharaj sees Krishna, then that's the day of Nandotsav. Nandastu atmaja utpanne jata lado mahamana aruhya vipran veda gyan snatah shuchi alankrita. The Nandotsav section of the Bhagavatam begins with this verse. Nandastu atmaja utpanne. Nanda Maharaj saw his son was born. So the word tu is used. Why the word tu is used? Because Krishna was born to Vasudeva and Devaki. In the previous lives, Vasudeva and Devaki had performed tapasya as Prishni and Sutapa. So Vasudeva and Devaki had then tapasya, and Krishna was born to Vasudeva and Devaki, but Krishna did not perform a single Bal Leela with Vasudeva and Devaki. As soon as he was born, he said, take me. So the austerities were done by Vasudeva and Devaki, but the pleasure of experiencing the childhood pastimes was experienced by Nanda and Yashoda. So therefore the word tu is used. So is it fair? Tapasya unhone kiya. Phal inhone paya. If someone says, you chant 16 rounds, for that he will go back to Godhead. Dhyan se jap karo. So you may start getting doubts. How much should I chant? So therefore, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai got that pleasure. And then from that day onwards, for 11 years, Krishna performed those pastimes as an advertisement to all of us that all of you have been having relationships in millions of lifetimes with people, objects, positions, circumstances. But for a change, try a relationship with Krishna and see the difference. See what happens. How does it make a difference? So therefore, Gopaha paraspara hrishta dadik kshiraha ghritambubi asin chanto vilimpanto navanitascha chikshipu. The cowherd boys were throwing, milk products on each other. Dadik kshiraha ghritambubi. In their pichkari was milk, flavored milk. And they were throwing, the gulal was all navanit or butter mixed with color, and they were smearing on each other. So this was their Nandotsav. In Kali Yuga, people will get a heart attack when they hear how they were playing. So Prabhupada writes, people think that those in the villages are poor because currently that's what we see. But Vrindavan was extremely opulent. And then at that time, Nanda Maharaj decides to go and offer some taxes to Vasudeva, and he starts his way to Mathura and pays Kamsa's taxes so that Kamsa and his men do not come and disturb Gokul, and then comes and meets Vasudevji. And Vasudevji is so blissful to see Nanda Maharaj. Prasakta dhihi swatma jayoho idam aha vishampute. And he embraces him and he says that, my dear brother, you are the most fortunate, because although you are so advanced in age, dishtya bhrata pravayasa idanim aprajasyate prajashaya nivrittasya prajatat samapadyata. Still you have become a father. So Vasudeva has lost 6 sons, but he is congratulating Nanda Maharaj for having a son. When we go through distress, we become self-conscious, absorbed with our problems. We can't think of others. Vasudeva has gone through such disappointment of losing 6 sons, but he is so conscious about Nanda Maharaj's pleasure because he is Krishna conscious. And then at that time, as Nanda Maharaj is taking leave of Vasudeva, Vasudeva warns him that as you are going back, please remember that there can be some danger for Krishna. But of course, Krishna's name has not yet been given for your son. Please be careful. Protect him nicely. So, Nanda Maharaj is thinking, what is the danger? Maybe Krishna will slip and fall while running here and there. Or, something else may happen. But he is not able to comprehend. And then Nanda Maharaj travels towards Vrindavan. So therefore, this is how, the pastime progresses. And the first demon who sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna, it begins from this point onwards, which we'll discuss tomorrow. But Srila Prabhupada actually wanted to share this Krishna consciousness with the whole world. And he began from the West. And in his 11 years of preaching in 66 to 77, Prabhupada got 5,500 disciples. From 1970 to 77, Prabhupada spent majority of his time in India and majority of his time in Mumbai. But in spite of spending majority time in India, Prabhupada got only 20 Indian disciples and more than 5,500 Western disciples. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu tells the story in his book when he was, taking a car and driving through Kalbadevi market to set up the 1971 Cross Maidan Festival organization. As he was driving, suddenly someone jumped in front of the car. He hit him. That guy fell on the ground. And a crowd surrounded Shyam Sundar Prabhu and they looked into the car. Shyam Sundar Prabhu had heard stories that in India, if you hit someone, the crowd buries you in the ground. So he took up his Japmala, started chanting. And then the public looked inside, and then they picked up the man who was beaten on the ground and started beating him up. They picked that guy who was hit by the car. And Shyam Sundar was bewildered. He was thinking, I made the mistake. Why is he getting beaten up? Then he thought, maybe in India they begin from there. Then they'll come to me. And then he was waiting what will happen. They beat him up and then suddenly they moved aside and said, go ahead. It was too much for him. That I made the mistake. Why the poor guy got beaten up? He pulled his window down and asked one fellow who spoke English, why was he beaten? And the man said, you are a Vaishnav. How dare he disturb a Vaishnav? Because he disturbed a Vaishnav, we punished him. So Shyam Sundar Prabhu got shocked that if somebody is dressed as a Vaishnav, here is a culture which respects so much. How much expectation people have from somebody who's practicing Krishna consciousness. So therefore, the advantage of practicing and preaching Krishna consciousness in India, that the background culture is already there. People already know all these things. People know what is temple. There are 2 million temples in India. ISKCON has only 70, 80 temples all over India and 250 centers totally. But there are 2 million temples. People know what is deities, what is Arati and this and that. Radha Damodar bus party, they were doing Mangal Arati for Radha Damodar. Suddenly police came, 5 o'clock in the morning. And they said, what happened? And the police said, we got a call from an old lady who said that there are 2 children who have been captured within this bus. And they are showing fire to that. Fire to that children. That was Arati. So that lady could not understand. She just thought, she saw from a distance 2 children looking, and Pujari is doing like 4:30 in the morning. So they said they are torturing 2 kids with fire. Because there is no context. It's a totally different culture. So therefore all of you are very fortunate that you are in this land of, Bharat. And ISKCON has made great progress in the last 50 years within India since 1970 when the first disciples came in India. And you will be happy to know that ISKCON India Youth Convention has become very active. And in the last 4 years, they have grown the outreach of youth preaching across India. And today there are 10,000 IYS students across India chanting 16 rounds. So we are grateful to the organizers for choosing Sri Vrindavan Dham for this Dham Yatra, and especially I am grateful that just after COVID, when everybody is looking for, exploring and moving out and rejuvenating their consciousness, Vrindavan Dham has been chosen, and we hope and pray that each one of you go through each and every activity which has been planned for you in this yatra with the utmost gratitude, with the utmost absorption, with deep prayerful contemplation, with understanding that this is a very, very rare privilege to be here in Vrindavan Dham with the association of devotees, hearing and chanting the glories of Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.